Do you need a coach? That's what we're talking about today. So I think general physical preparedness is something that we should be looking after for essentially the rest of our lives. And I don't think it's an extreme statement. And I do think after a while, especially for competitive athletes, we tend to realize that the drive to compete and train hard is no longer there. There are other things in our life. And we usually tend to realize that the amount of effort and work that we need in order to maintain what we have is considerably less than the one required in order to continue to get better and improving upon past performances. So when it comes to looking for help from a qualified source, I think there's a few things we need to consider. The first one is, how would this fit into my schedule and my life? Okay, what are my actual goals right now? Am I trying to maintain or am I trying to improve? And why am I trying to do either one of those things? Do we need help learning? Do we need help improving? Or do we simply want to offload the task of programming onto somebody else? These are all valid options, but there's a few things we need to consider. So let's first define the role of a coach in this world of training. A coach should be both a mentor and a guide. Our job is to essentially provide you with the most effective path in order to reach the goals, whatever they may be. Okay, and we do this while keeping in mind that we always need to make sure that you are both happy and satisfied with what you're doing, okay? And that we are maintaining your long-term health. Now, when it comes to competitive environments, there's a little bit of a caveat here because especially when it comes to competing at the elite level, things are just not always gonna be the most healthy, okay? This is something that all athletes come to terms one way or another, and it's just simply how sports is. Sports are not a very easy thing to be a part of. The better you get. In most cases, you always want to be looking for someone who has done what you want to do or has helped people get what you want to get. This might be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I don't think training is very complicated. And I think that if you take the time to just study a little bit, maybe a couple hours every week, you take the time to write things down and like fuck up a few times, learn, improve, adapt, you will essentially come to learn the principles of training. You know, they're not that complicated. I said it in the video of last week. I think there's just two: progressive overload and work capacity. Like, you need to be making your workouts harder, or you need to be improving in some aspect week after week. You know, reducing your resting time, increasing the weight, adding reps, adding sets, things like that. And you need to be in good enough physical shape in order to recover from the training that you're doing and in order to abide by the prescribed intensities. That's all training is, in my opinion. And these are things that if you just simply take the time to pay attention to what you're doing, you'll figure them out. It is often said that research lags practical application, meaning that coaches will figure things out in the gym, in the field, in the track, you know, and then research will come in 5-10 years later and tell us why do those things work. And lastly, like, if you actually find a coach, you need to be willing to listen. You know, programs are not magical. You're not gonna get a program from a coach, I don't care how good they are, and think, oh, I have never would have thought of doing squats. I would have never thought of doing those movements. That will very rarely happen. Oftentimes, the true art of programming is in the details. So you need to be willing to listen and pay attention to what you're doing. The details matter. You know, following the prescribed intensities, following the prescribed rest periods, following the reps, following the sets, obeying by the warm-up protocols, warm-up complexes, warm-up sets, understanding why you're doing cardio, what type of cardio are you doing, why are you doing that cardio on that particular day, you know, showing up on the weekends, showing up on recovery days, even though you feel like crap. These things matter. Those details do matter. So pay attention to the instructions. And with all this in mind, let's run through the typical progression for a developing athlete. If you're just getting started, my advice to you would be, yes, look for some guidance. I know this is just working out, and especially when you're new, you can get away with doing mostly anything. But this is the time when we usually pick up bad habits, okay, that we're later gonna pay for, and it's gonna take us even longer to get over. So look for some guidance. But do you really need a coach? I don't think so. Like, I think if you're disciplined enough or curious enough to actually put some time and study a little bit, or just walk up to coaches and ask good questions, get involved and start learning the craft, you don't need a coach. You'll figure these things out. You know, make sure that your form is good, maybe find some guidance for that. But more often than not, you'll just be better off with just a good training partner, somebody who's gonna keep you accountable and push you to train hard. The biggest thing in this stage might just be to learn how to follow a program. Even if you're writing it yourself, stick with it. Fuck it up a few times, learn, adapt, improve, okay? Or just follow a generic program. Find a good coach and follow one of their generic programs, usually available pretty cheap. A generic program from a good coach will oftentimes be better than a personalized program from a shitty coach. That's just how it is, because like I said, these things are not that complicated. Now, once you start climbing up the ladder and getting better at whatever it is that you're doing, this might be the time when you should start considering looking for a coach. But I think you're still gonna be fine just coaching yourself. But I will advise that you take some consideration into who your training partners are. Okay, especially when you get into these hyper competitive environments and atmospheres, it gets pretty hard to start doing the things that you need to do, which are usually the things that you're bad at. Okay, if you're always training with your buddies and always trying to keep up with your buddies, the chances of them having the exact same weaknesses that you do are very, very slim. And I often see it. People disregarding warm-ups, people disregarding the actual work that they need to do because they want to keep up with their buddies, and their buddies are not training in the exact same weaknesses that they have. You know, Peter Croft on the book Why We Climb stated that finding a good climbing partner is like getting a gift from the gods. Like, it is extremely rare and extremely hard thing to find. Somebody who can be there for you without being jealous and without being like a threat to you. It's becoming pretty popular in CrossFit that the elite level athletes train with the opposite sex. You know, Matt Fraser and Claire Toomey started that. The best two athletes in the entire world training with each other, but they were not a threat to each other because they competed in completely different divisions. Now, if you're actually gonna get a coach in this stage, it becomes even more important to actually be willing to listen and be willing to learn what the programs are all about. This will help you give proper feedback to your coach, which is indispensable at this stage, because we might be starting to learn what do you react better to, what are your favorite ways of training, what are the things that you usually disregard. You know, how training feels is an important thing to know. I don't care if you're getting through all the work and getting through all the reps. If you're pushing to your absolute max without telling me, the program is not gonna work. Okay, so if you're trying to do things the same way you've always done and just haphazardly look at the program, think you understand the reps and go for it, you're gonna miss out on a lot, and it's just gonna become frustrating for both parties. Like, be willing to learn the ins and outs of programs, especially at this stage. Remember, the details matter. Follow the prescribed intensity, the prescribed sets, reps, rest periods, knowing why you're doing cardio and when you should be doing cardio, showing up for recovery days even when you feel like crap, showing up on the weekends, especially in the off season when things are not very specific and we're trying to make sure that all your specific skills stay fine-tuned. You need to show up on the weekends. Now, for the most elite crew, you will almost always need a coach. You know, if anything, just a different opinion. You more than likely know what works best for you, and you know how to train certain aspects of your fitness and your condition very, very well. But when it comes to having problems, oftentimes, if you're in a competitive environment, a competitive cycle, you don't have the time to just fuck around and try to figure it out by yourself, like somebody like me does, or somebody who's not competing on a normal schedule does. So look for some guidance. Like I said, it doesn't have to be for everything, but on the things that you're bad at, be willing to accept that you might need somebody else to come and show you what has worked for them in the past. It's gonna save you time, and it's gonna save you frustration. And lastly, one last piece of advice, be willing to look for professionals that understand you and wanna work with you. One of the worst things for a weightlifter is going to the doctor or going to your chiropractor and have them tell you you shouldn't squat that deep. That's not gonna do anything for me, okay? And there are professionals out there who are athletes themselves. You know, it might take some digging around, asking around, and just trying out a few practices and just walking away. You know, find people who understand that we know that what we're doing might not be the safest thing to do, but it fucking feels good. We like it. We're doing things properly, and we just want to fuck shit up sometimes. You know, and go hard. There are people out there who understand this. Okay, so don't get discouraged if you're simply working with someone who doesn't get it. Keep searching, keep looking for your crew and your people. Once you find them, man, it fucking feels great. And yeah, that's the video for this week. So hopefully you guys got something out of it. As always, please subscribe to the channel, leave any comments or questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them. If you're looking for a program, I'll leave a link below to my Bulking for Athletes program. We've seen good results in the past, and yeah, especially now, I know that most seasons are ending, coming into winter. You might have a couple weeks to run through an off-season program. If you buy the program and you only have 4 or 8 weeks, reach out to me and I'll help you however I can. But yeah, thanks for watching.
It is important to draw wisdom from many different places. If we take it from only one place, it becomes rigid and stale. Understanding others, the other elements, and the other nations will help you become whole.